Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. You already know the logo and the moniker over here, Unique Make Audio, man. Yo, we on. I'm going to break this down because I did a video yesterday about Bruce Rivers talking all crazy. And first of all, let me say my condolences to his son. And this is not to bash Bruce Rivers, because now he's going through a trying times. And I wouldn't do that anyway, because that's not my MO. But if something is said that's wrong, I don't care if it's somebody from the street or a lawyer, you know, and what he said was wrong. And I'm getting ready to prove it to you. I already proved it in another video, but we had a couple of people that still didn't understand. But that's probably because we be having rat bastards and flip-flop wearing in public trolls sliding in and throwing bull crap up to pull you away from the message. I'm going to show you the verdict sheet that they're going to use in Diddy's trial, and I'm going to explain to you what unanimity means. I'm going to explain to you what elements of a crime mean. I'm going to explain to you what a statute means. So sit back, enjoy the ride, and know that you at the Mecca. All right? All right, you know what it is. Unique Make Audio, man. We're going to get right into this. I'm going to show you what time it is. Now, we're talking about a RICO charge. A RICO charge is saying that you're the boss of a conspiracy. So you have to have a conspiracy to have a RICO. I don't even see as conspiracy in Diddy's indictment because they never wanted to list the alleged co-conspirators because they're the alleged witnesses, just so you understand. So they never list none of the co-conspirators, and they didn't even charge them with a RICO. You got to have a conspiracy and then a RICO. Somebody put hey, Bruce Rivers, tell me how could they take you to trial on RICO without a conspiracy when a RICO is saying that you're the boss of the conspiracy? You know, but anyway, we're going to get into that. Love to have a, legal debate. They call that a hypothesis in the law, right? Now, so let's play this. So they're going to explain to you about the RICO and how complicated this is. I fought this for 26 years of my life where I had to eat, sleep, and this RICO in order to get it off my back for 26 years. So I know this like the back of my hand. I even went to the Supreme Court with what I'm getting ready to break down to you. And a lot of lawyers don't even know these things because they don't look at the newest updates. They leave that up to their paralegals to figure it out and let them know what the changes was. But when you're sitting in prison doing life plus 20, that means that you got to take your black to the law library and watch everything that come out in the CLR. That's called the criminal legal reporter, criminal law reporter. Let's get that right. That's when all the Supreme Court cases come in there. All right, let's play this and we're going to find out about the RICO. We're going to let them tell you about it. All right.
There's been a lot of talk about this case and the racketeering part of this case, racketeering conspiracy. Is that a very difficult charge to get a conviction on? A lot of prosecutors, I think, have struggled with this charge.
Hey, see what she just said? A lot of prosecutors have struggled with these charges, and the prosecutors is the ones bringing these charges. Then she's going to turn around and say they got a 90% conviction rate, but yet she's saying that even the prosecutors struggle with it. So imagine what the lawyers got to go through when only a handful of lawyers get a chance to deal with a RICO charge. Let me take you on a ride. I'm gonna show you. Calm down with the wheels. Now, I'm gonna take you on a ride. When I got locked up down in Virginia, I went down there and I had my own New York lawyer I was bringing, but by me bringing him down there, he had to register what they call pro havoc. Pro havoc meaning that he's not licensed in Virginia, so he has to go through a lawyer that is licensed in Virginia, and they have to be the lead counsel on the record, even though he's going to be the lead person in the case, just so you understand. So now we go down there. They give me a public defender that dealt with marital divorces to handle something as complex as a CCE RICO. And I say CCE RICO because we got the rat bastards, so we got to address them too. I say that because the RICO and the CCE, they're kissing cousins. The RICO is anything that carries more than a year and a day, and it deals with a lot of extortion, but the CCE deals with when you're selling drugs and you got 5 or more people working for you, and the RICO, you have to have 5 or more people. Did they list 5 or more people for Diddy? But see, this is where it get tricky, so y'all need to pay attention to this ride. Let me get right into this before I go back into that. This is Diddy's verdict sheet, right? I'm going to show you Diddy's verdict sheet right now, what it looked like, right? Now, this is Diddy's verdict sheet. If you look at this, it says at the top, because you can see my mouse, right? All right. U.S. versus Sean Combs, right? Proposed verdict form, racketeering acts. So that's where they could use overt acts. Overt acts is not predicate acts, and overt acts is not charged in the indictment. Overt acts is just listed in the indictment to show you the course of conduct that you did to break the law doing the scheme of the crime. See how nice I broke that down? Give me a round of applause. Give me a round of applause. All right, man, relax. Yo, all right, forget that. Just give me a like. You know what I mean? Give me a like. Make sure if you subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notification bell. But now, let's get back to this proposed verdict form for the RICO acts. So now they don't have to be criminal acts. You know, they don't have to be criminal acts. They can be, they could just be simple overt acts, you know? And then you have the predicates. The predicates is what's listed in the indictment. We're going to speak about that in a minute. But if you notice here under the overt acts, right, it says these are the proposed acts. So the jury have to be specific and unanimous as to the same 2 of this proposed 10 overt acts that's listed. So if 11 jurors pick A and B and the 12th juror pick even C, then that means that they didn't meet the burden of the RICO predicates. And you can't have the RICO without the predicates, because the RICO is saying what you did. You know, the predicates is saying what you did to violate the RICO. Do y'all understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, and it's getting too complicated for you? Sit back, enjoy the ride, man. I'm taking you to school. So that's why under here it has these 10 acts, and we know Diddy was only charged with 3 counts. So he don't have 10 acts, but they could use these 10 acts. Now, the government wanted to use 73 acts, right? Then they came back, and then they realized, like, they made the elements, they made the predicates elements of the indictment, is what the prosecutor said. So if they made the predicates elements of the indictment, that means they got to be a unanimous verdict on it. So if we put up 73 acts, that means that we got more of a chance to lose the case because they'll have more different ones to pick from. So they narrowed it down to be concise as possible to the 10 that's on the board per se. Now, so they, in order to find them guilty of the predicate acts, he got to pick 2 of the same. The jury got to pick 2 of the same of these charges here. And that's why next to each charge, it says proven or not proven. If you notice, it does not say guilty or not guilty, because these crimes do not warrant a guilty verdict, if you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. So that's why I just said proven or not proven, meaning did the government prove that, what's the first one? Did the government prove that, I can't even read it, going too far, you know, that the kidnapping attempted, you know, and all that, you know, did the government prove any of that? And all I got to say is proven or not proven. But he won't get sentenced for that. The sentence for that comes in the overall sentence of the RICO. And that's why even though the conspiracy would carry 10 to life, the RICO will carry 20 to life, which is double. That's why it's baffling me why they don't have a conspiracy charge listed up here. That's strange to me. I don't understand that. I mean, you know, I got to take y'all to school on this so you understand. But it's either proven or not proven, but he don't get a sentence on those acts. But he do get sentenced on the overall count because of those acts. See how simple I break that down? Come on. All right, so now that's where we at, right? So that's where the predicates come in. Now we're going to go back to Shorty breaking it down. You know what I mean? We take on the whole screen. We're going to break it down where she dealing with it like this, right? Now, let's get to her. She's talking about the RICO and how serious it is to get a conviction on the RICO, which is what we're talking about now, and it's going to all fall back to the predicate acts.
In regards to all the charges, the sex trafficking, the transportation across state lines, and the RICO is the hardest charge for the prosecution, but also the strongest penalty, because if convicted, he can go to life in prison for the RICO charge.
What?
Exactly. Now, these are the charges that he has. These charges warrant a guilty verdict. Now, these charges warrant a guilty verdict, right? And these charges, you know, over here, warrant just either if it was proven or not proven. Do y'all understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Let's get back to this.
What makes it so difficult? Obviously, when you hear RICO, you usually think there are more people involved and more defendants. And this time, it is simply one man who is being accused of sort of being the mastermind of all of this.
And see, that's the whole point. All his alleged co-conspirators became the government witnesses. So that's why they're not listed up there. All of them that went up there to testify, the government let them know straight up, allegedly, you already know what time it is. If you don't testify and testify in the manner we want you to testify, that means that your ass will be sitting up there with P Diddy, Sean Combs, J Love, whatever you want to call them. And they said, where'd I talk at? And they just started talking. The prosecutor smacked him one time to get him to talk. Then he had to smack him 10 times to shut him up, you know? And then he had to make sense of all the stuff they were talking about, put it together and bring the case. But like I said, these are charges. Those were overt acts. Those were predicates that don't warrant a verdict, but it warrants being listed and knowing exactly what they pick. And what's crazy, right? Let's get back to this, right? What's so crazy is that this joint here, like I said, if 11 jurors pick 2 and the 12th juror pick one of the 2 that they pick, but he picked a third one, then he's innocent, not guilty of the sex trafficking. On my back, the RICO. Do y'all understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I'm taking my time to break this down so y'all can follow me and understand, because I got people saying, oh, they're talking about the jury instructions. Yes, that's what the judge was doing today with the attorneys and the prosecution. They was getting the wording and language right to explain to the jury exactly what I'm telling you that y'all don't know about. A lot of these lawyers come up here, never dealt with a RICO. I had to fight a RICO for 26 years. So you tell me who know more about a RICO, a man that had to fight it for 26 years or a man that just read about it in law school or may have saw it in a courtroom. I had to get the RICO up off me to get out of prison to be here to make this YouTube video and save your life, to let you know it's not worth it. Don't violate the law. Don't go on the street. Don't sell drugs. Don't gang bang. Don't scam. Don't do none of that, man. Follow these people's rules. Go get a job. Go get a YouTube channel if you don't want to get a job. Create your own job. Be a unique entrepreneur. Let's get back to this party, man, because I don't think they understand what's really going on here, that this is looking at taking a man's freedom for the rest of his life. Now,
it goes to the whole idea of this mafia, this crime family, this racketeering conspiracy. And that's what the defense really argues. This is a conspiracy, then why is he the only person being charged? Where are these other co-conspirators? The defense argues that no one out of the 34 witnesses that the prosecution brought to testify, no one said that this was a criminal enterprise. And so based on that, he should not be committed guilty of those charges.
And how long is it unusual for it to take more than an hour or more for instructions to be given to a jury in a case like this?
That usually is about the time, because you have to remember the judge has to go through each one of the elements of the crime and explain that to the jury, so they fully understand what exactly they are going to look at when they go back and deliberate.
Well, we should mention court back in session just now. They are looking at these charges, and we're expecting the judge at this hour, at this time, is already starting to read some of those instructions to the jury. So we will wait and see what happens with this case. But as you put it, there are some big numbers. 95% of cases that have come to this particular court have been convictions, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
on a charge, absolutely. But ultimately, we're going to see what the jury does of whether they come back guilty or not guilty.
Yep. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
We are standing by.
All right, so before we get into that, right, let me bring this over here and we're going to go over here. Hold up, man. Hold up. What I want to show, I want to get into this. Let me tell you and explain to you what an element is. This is a Supreme Court case right here, right? Let me scroll it down so that you could see exactly what is going on. This is Supreme Court case. This is from the top of the case right here. This is Richardson versus United States. This is a Supreme Court case that we're getting ready to read. And this is going to break down exactly what an element is. Now, right? Because if it's an element, then it warrants a unanimous verdict. That's all I want y'all to understand. Don't get confused with all this YouTube gibberish with people that's just against Diddy talking crap. Forget Diddy, take him out of this. I want y'all to understand that this could be you. This could be Joe Plumber. This could be Randy the electrician going up for a transportation charge because he met a girl at the plumbing or the electrical, convention in Chicago, and he flew her back to New York. Ex-trafficking. If they get away with this. So y'all need to pay attention. So now, this is what the Supreme Court said, right? We're going to go right here, follow my mouse. See the mouse over here? We're going to start from right here where the mouse is at. It says, in this case, we must decide whether the statute's phrase, series of violations, refer to one element, namely a series, right? In respect to which the violations constitute the underlying brute facts or means, or whether those words create several elements, namely the violations, right? In respect to each of which the jury must be unanimous. If it creates several elements, which the RICO predicates, that's why it's predicates with an S, plural, I think they call it. That's why when you have that, now they have to be unanimous and specific about exactly which two of these acts that, where we at? That's why you got to be unanimous and specific about the same two out of these charges. Like I said, if one juror picks something different than the other 11, that means that he's not guilty of the RICO. And that's what carries life in jail. So that's why they had to harp on this. Like I said, this looked like a whole verdict sheet, right? That's because each one of these crimes is having their own individual verdict rendered. Because they got to see the Supreme Court let's ride. The Supreme Court made it like this, that they had to do it like this on the verdict form, because when I went to trial, all it said was RICO, guilty or not guilty, and the jury said guilty. So then I said, what am I guilty of? What are the predicates that they use to find me guilty of my CCE? And they said, oh, the jury knew in their mind what they used. Then how do I challenge what's in their mind? How do we know they used something that was permissible under the law? I say permissible under the law because I was dealing with drug violations. So that means the three predicates had to be Title 21 USC drug violations. But instead, in my case, they told the jury that they could use the money laundering or anything they heard during the course of the trial to find me guilty of the 848. And I said, no, this is a drug charge. They could only use drugs that they find that I violated the laws under, not the money laundering. The money laundering has its own statute, which is 18 USC 1956. I mean, come on, dog. I know this like the back of my hand because I had to live it. And then some clown and rat bastard flip-flop wearing and public troll that needs plenty of these. I had the nerve to come up there and say, why should I listen to you? You're not a lawyer. All a lawyer do is take your money. They took my money. I had to go in the law library and figure out how to save my money for when I come home. I'll have enough to go get a camera, lights, and start acting with a YouTube, you clowns. I ate, slept, and the law library and the CCE. The lawyers went to school for 8 years, 4 years. And how many lawyers, you ask your lawyer, any lawyer y'all have out there, right? You ask them if they ever tried a CCE case. Ask them if they ever tried a RICO case. There's not even many people charged with these charges. This is equivalent to a murder charge. This is the biggest charge you could get in America, man. They talking about putting this man away for the rest of his life for what he did in the bedroom is what his lawyer is saying. So y'all pay attention. I don't pick sides. I just give y'all the facts and let you know what it is. Because a lot of y'all watch all this gibberish. I can't believe, no disrespect, Bruce Rivers came up here and said that you didn't have to be unanimous as to the two predicates. That's what he'll argue because I just showed you the Supreme Court case. Do I need to go back to the Supreme Court case again, man? Hold up. Do we need to go back to this? Because I don't think they really understand that, you know, this is my life. You know, this is the Supreme Court speaking. Period. They said in respect to each of which the jury must agree unanimously and separately. Then they said our decision will make a difference, whereas here the government introduces evidence that the defendant has committed more underlying crimes than legally necessary to make up a series. That's the same thing they did in Diddy's joint. I just showed you the verdict sheet where they listed, just to make sure, you know, because I know how to work this now. I just showed you the verdict sheet, right? Where they listed 10 acts. So this is a perfect case that they're speaking about in the Supreme Court where they say that it makes a big difference. Because when they introduce 10 acts, that means they have to be specific and unanimous as to which two they use. That means all 12 jurors have to agree with it. I challenge Bruce Rivers or any lawyer out there to challenge me on what I'm saying. Put your money where your mouth is and stop the faking. Tell it like it is to the people. Don't just because you don't like Diddy, you want to switch the issue to make the issue fit, you know, that Diddy is done. I don't care if Diddy's done. I don't care if Diddy get buried in jail, the electric chair, life in ADX, none of that. I already served mine 5 years in ADX and 26 years in federal prison. If he violated the law, he need to pay his punishment like I did. And that's where I'm at with this. But we're not going to lead y'all wrong, man. Now, I'm going to go back to the Supreme Court case. Like I said, this is where they introduce more than two predicates. So if you introduce it more than two, it have to reflect on the verdict sheet exactly what two they use. So that's why they dropped the Kid Cudi arson and the kidnapping of that other girl and all of that, because they try to narrow it down to less as they can. They know the case is weak, so they still threw in their 10. If it was that serious, you just put in there the two you had and just make it cut and dry. Did he do this or did he do that? But now, did he do this? Did he do that? Or did he do that? Or did he do this? Or did he do that? Or did he do this? And he wasn't even charged with none of this. This is just stuff that was testified to in the trial that they bring it over to make it fit the statute that he was charged with. But they didn't even know half this was going to be said in the manner it was said. Didn't know it was going to be cross-examined and broken down like they did in that manner. Like how they said, let's ride. Like the Kid Cudi joint they threw out, right? Diddy was schooling Cassie, right? She was his plaything. And then Kid Cudi came in to get his kiddies off and his cuddies in and did what he had to do. He got a piece, even had a freak off allegedly with Cassie. They went and did their thing. Now Diddy is pissed that this man done took his girl. What does that have to do with a RICO? Nothing. So that has had nothing to do with the predicate. That's why they took it off. I said that before they even threw it out. Go back and watch my previous videos that deal with Diddy. I told you there's no way they're going to take him to a jury because of the Kid Cudi situation, because all that was a dude that was ussy whoop that acted in emotions and, you know what I mean, allegedly went after a dude and blew his car up. You know what I mean? Which we know he couldn't have blown the car up from the evidence. That's why they also took it out. Mind you, the evidence states that, you know, the camera pointing to the car was turned to another direction so you couldn't see who climbed up on the car. They cut the roof and put a cocktail in the roof. And everybody know if you from the street, common sense, we all know it. You ain't got to be from the street to know that a cocktail is in a glass bottle with alcohol. They got the flame on the top. You light it and you throw it. And when it hit, the alcohol splash up. So who in their right mind is going to cut a roof and drop a cocktail through the roof on a leather seat? So how's the bottle going to break? Only thing happened is when they lit it and dropped it, the liquid that was on the rag burnt a little bit of the seat. The flames went up and hit the roof, so they knew it was an amateur. So right there, they knew it wasn't Diddy, because they said Diddy was allegedly sitting across the street watching. If he was sitting across the street watching, all he had to do was just take that cocktail like this and just throw that joint. And when it hit the ground, it goes, and there's gasoline and fire everywhere. Not cut a roof and drop it. Then they even make it worse, right? With that same situation. Then they said that Kid Cudi bought a dog for his girl for 25 grand. These guys are spending 25 grand on a dog for a girl. And then they got homies that's incarcerated, and they'll tell them that they ain't got no money to send them no commissary, but they buying a dog for 25 grand. Then they homie want to start a business, and they tell them that they don't have no money, but they want to buy a dog for 25 grand for their girl. Do you see who want to befriend somebody like that? But anyway, they said that this $25,000 dog was, was politely put in the bathroom with a rolled up wet towel under the bottom of the door and closed so that the fumes from the fire outside that was going to allegedly start from this cocktail, that the smoke wouldn't go in and get to the dog. Now, do you think that if Diddy did it, that he'll be worrying about this $25,000 dog that Kid Cudi bought for his other girl? Or it might really be Cassie's that Kid Cudi was holding there. And then Cassie said, I'm going to go visit my dog. Diddy thinking that she's going to go visit her girlfriend with a dog, but instead she's going to Kid Cudi house where he's holding the dog, and they slowly trying to shack up, and she's trying to get away from Diddy and all this foolishness. It could have been any of that. You see what I'm saying? Let's keep this 100, man. Been on here long enough, but I'm going to go back and let them finish talking this news crap. You know what I mean? Because I don't understand how y'all even sit here and question me with this, But wasn't I? Yeah, but let me get back. I don't even know where to go with y'all sometime, because I just get so, irritated. Let's finish reading this real quick. Now, so this way it says the government introduces evidence that the defendant has committed more underlying drug crimes than legally necessary to make up a series. We assume, but we do not decide the necessary number is 3, the number used in this case. Now, they said, right? I said, so this is something that's going to go back to the Supreme Court, but that was with the CCE. It had to be 3. With a RICO, it's 2. So they'll probably try and drop the CCE from 3 to 2 later, but we know it's a series. It got to be 2 or more for it to be a series, meaning the series is the best 2 games out of 3 for the playoffs. That's a series, the best 1 out of 2 is not a series. All right, so let's go. So they decide what a series is. So it says, if the statute creates a single element, a series in respect to which individual violations are but the means, then the jury need only agree that the defendant committed at least 3 of the underlying crimes the government has tried to prove. So they're saying that if there wasn't elements, that they didn't have to do that, right? That all they had to do was say that, yeah, he committed some 3. But now in this Richardson case, they made the predicates elements of, they knew the predicates was elements of the offense, but they listed that being that they are predicates of the offense, and the Supreme Court has spoken, now from that first day forward, June 1st, 1999, they had to honor it as a new interpretation of the law. This was not a new constitutional law that was ruled, that was made in this case. It was an interpretation of the statute that was enacted from 1970. And it was enacted to take down mafia figures, not freaks in the bedroom. But they could flip it to use it anywhere, the same as they used it to get the gang members off. I seen them use it because we ride. I seen them use it to get my homies out in Jersey in the federal court and charge them with a RICO for burglary. You know what I mean? Normally it's a conspiracy for burglary, but they made a RICO out the burglary so they could give them more time, because the burglary wasn't carrying that much. So if they put RICO on it, now they talk about little 20 years. Now, so as we keep going, so go in respect to which the individual violations are but not the means, then the jury need only agree that the defendant committed at least 3 of the underlying crimes the government has tried to prove. But then it goes, the jury need not agree about which 3. On the other hand, if the statute makes each violation a separate element, then the jury must agree unanimously about which 3 crimes the defendant committed. And that's what they're trying to do over here, that the lawyers did a wonderful job adding it in, where they have to be specific and unanimous, and they have to go back and have a discussion about if they agree to each one to the same 2 of these charges. Otherwise, they'll jump in and say, all right, well, you know, 3 jurors say he did A, B, and then another 3 jurors say he did 4 or 5, you know, and they mix it around. No. All 12 jurors have to agree to at least 2 of these acts. All 12 jurors have to agree to at least 2 of the same acts. They can agree to more, but they have to at least agree to 2 of the same acts. Come on, man. This is too fire. I don't know how y'all getting all this here. And y'all sitting, he's a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a black man that studied the law and fought to get out of jail and know what the hell he's doing. That's where we at. All right, let's go.
For jury deliberations to begin in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Combs. In closing arguments, the defense accused prosecutors of going after Combs because of his lifestyle. And prosecutors said Combs used his money and violence to do whatever he wanted, and it is time to hold him accountable. CNN's Kara Scannell has been in court for this entire trial. She's outside this morning. What can we expect over the next, minutes and hours, Kara?
Let's go.
Good morning, John. The jury will begin deliberations this morning, but first the judge will charge them, tell them what the law is in this case, and that is expected to take at least more than an hour because Combs is facing multiple charges: racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution. And once they get this case, as you said, it's after closing arguments took place over 2 days last week. Combs' lawyers asking for an acquittal, saying that he's been targeted for his lifestyle, his personal drug use. They also argue that his 2 former girlfriends agreed to participate in the sex acts at the center of this, and that now they're after a money grab. But prosecutors said that Combs is not a god, and it's time to hold him accountable. The stakes here are high on the sex trafficking count. If Combs is convicted of just one of the 2 of those, he faces a mandatory prison sentence of 15 years in prison. The racketeering and the sex trafficking charges also carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. So a lot is on the line here. And soon, once this gets underway today, his fate will be in the hands of 8 men and 4 women. John?
Kara, what struck you in the defense closing? What jumped out at you as being some of their strongest arguments?
Well, they're really focusing on the element of sex trafficking and whether this was consensual sex that the women participated in with the male prostitutes, or if it was not, if it was forced as the government has alleged. So they were underscoring the fact that at various times, these women, his former girlfriends, willingly participated in these sex acts. And they said that the government conceded that in their closing argument. And so Combs' lawyers asked the jury, how is he supposed to know the difference of when it was consensual and when it wasn't? So they're really trying to get the jury's focus on that. Also, they looked at a lot of these racketeering counts. For that, they need to agree on 2 acts that could be witness tampering, arson. They're really trying to undercut. They're saying that this was Combs' business. It was one thing, but this was his personal life, which was separate, and there was no racketeering conspiracy. John?
Bottom line is, Diddy was a freak. We know he was a freak. He was a woman beater and everything under the sun. We got that. But does that amount to RICO, racketeering, and getting locked up for the rest of your life? Somebody put in the comments, subscribe to my daughter YouTube channel, Juanita Make Audio. Follow me at Unique Make Audio at Instagram, all that crap. And don't forget Unique Make Audio Prison Stories and Make Audio TV. Let's keep this moving. All right, we riding.
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime. Fresh out the can of
26, he back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops make an audio.